Recording live. Okay. This is what I want to speak on today. The double standard that has been going on for over 100 years now in this country. And how people are every time something happens, like the recent shootings or the recent uprising in white supremacy, everyone acts like they're so surprised as if this hasn't been the nature of this country for over 100 years at least. More than 200 years, but over 100 years at least. My frustration comes from us as a people, so-called Negro, Black, Colored, African American, actually Moors. When we're so surprised and we act so oblivious, we allow ourselves to be so vulnerable as a people, just so it can be accepted, and our oppressors are the system that systematically enslaved our ancestors. We're willing to accept all the bullshit that they attack us and do to us. We willing to accept all that bullshit just to be a part of their system. And this is what's the problem to me. It ain't the fact that the white supremacists can walk around here with guns and the police don't do nothing about it. That's old news. Why are y'all still surprised about that? The fact of the matter is the brothers and sisters are still participating in a clear hypocrisy, a clearly double standard going on. For years, this is not nothing that you should not be familiar with unless you've been on a rock for the past 20 to 50 years, 25 to 50 years, right? So that's first of all. Now, let me get out of here just to let's see what we got here. Is this it? Okay, now let's go into this. FBI warns of white supremacists in law enforcement 10 years ago. 10 years ago, y'all, they warned of this. Right? Has nothing changed? Has nothing changed? Right? And they got the picture of that punk right there, so-called committed suicide. I don't believe that. Anybody who believes this punk right here committed suicide, I got a beachfront property for sale. Okay, but let's go into this. Increasing attention toward the killing of black men and women by police throughout the past years have ignited national conversations on racism and law enforcement. From Freddie Gray and October, in April 2015, to Deborah Dano, an emotional disrupted woman fatally shot this week by a YPD police. Protests around the country have forced many Americans to reasonless have police engaged in communities of colors. I don't know that redress how police with community engage with communities of color in light of our perhaps despite the increasing scrutiny, FBI Director James Comey told police officers a nationwide conference told police officers at a nationwide conference last Sunday that because of its insufficient data on use of force, Americans actually have no idea whether race bias and policies is really an epidemic, pointing to the current public outrage over police killings of African American. Comey, go down. Said that absence of good information and data have aided in absence of good information and data have aided in the growing belief that police officers target particular communities. Well, they don't have to do any fucking research. That's obvious. So this is them pandering to you right now. Okay, this this is the narrative he told attendees of the International Association of Chiefs of Police. It is a narrative driven by the video images of real misconduct, possible misconduct, and perceived misconduct. But even if there isn't hard statistics the problem of racial biases among police isn't new. In fact, it's been a concern of the FBI for at least a decade. Exactly 10 years ago this week, the FBI warned of the possibility of the potential consequences, including biases of white supremacist groups infiltrating local and state law enforcement, in indicating it was a significant threat to the national security, right? So you can go into this article. It's called the PBS Hours News. FBI warns white supremacists in law enforcement 10 years ago, right? So, okay. Now, let's go into this right here. Just to show you that y'all are being oblivious. And this is something that's obvious, that's been obvious. And to me, it's like later with, I want to look at this. I want to see this video right quick too. Look, check this out. I love that video because it shows a direct correlation between what other communities are doing and our community is doing, right? Now, that wasn't what the main thing I want y'all to peep out, though. Check this out. Peep this out, y'all. Have patience, y'all. Share this video, y'all, because this is basically me connecting the dots. Oh, I like this one too, because it's just to show you that they know who the hell we are. Okay, hold up. Have patience with me, y'all. Have patience. Because I have a reason. There's a method to this madness right here. So have patience with me. Have patience. I appreciate all those who tune in to these broadcasts. I only do it for edification of the people. You know what I'm saying? To not only for the edification, but to set the record straight that we see that people are out here. I'm talking about people on our side who supposedly on our side. You know what I'm saying? Who's supposed to be our people. Y'all see this stuff. Y'all choosing to be oblivious. Choosing to be oblivious. Oh, this is a good one too. This is a broadcast that accidentally reported the shootings before it all was official. It had became official. To have patience, this video probably, I don't know if this video is gonna even work, because this one is they catch stuff like this and censor it. As it was told to us happened at the Walmart in Horizon. I'm not sure what time this tweet went out, however, okay, here it is, at 3 p.m. Well, that hasn't happened yet. Okay, so today is... That hasn't happened yet. As it was told to us... That hasn't happened yet. It was told to us happened at the Walmart in Horizon. I'm not sure what time this tweet went out, however, okay, here it is, at 3 p.m. Well, that hasn't happened yet. Okay, so today is right. So just there's implication that it might have been a false flag too. So I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying, but there's implications that there may have been a false flag. So, okay, have patience with me. This is not what I really wanted to show you. I want to show you something to prove that we've known these things for years. These things are not new. We chosen to be oblivious. We've chosen to ignore the factors. We've chosen to be vulnerable in this state just to be accepted, just to be a part of a system that systematically enslaved our ancestors. Like, I don't understand the fascination with being integrated with these people. You know what I'm saying? I don't see the fascination, but I see that we'll refuse to get along with each other enough to even solve our problems together. So this is some of the problem on why we continue to participate and engage in a system that's clearly have the double standard and treats us like second class citizens. All right, is it here? She'll be here, man. Come on now. Have patience with me, y'all. I'm still looking for the video that I put up. And it shouldn't be this far down, but I guess it is. I haven't seen it yet, so obviously it's on here. So let's keep searching. It's on here. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. The wait is over, y'all. Here it is. Let me make this computer goes kind of slow though, so have patience. Like I said, have patience with me. Okay, here it is. Now I put the headline of this video is "Do your research on the federal." No, not that. That's not it. That's not it. My bad. That's not it. That's interesting too, but this is the one that I really want to get at. Okay, when you know the history of the police, you know the social DNA goes back to slave patrols, militias sanctioned by the United States government. Slave patrol, militia equals militias, equal Ku Klux Klan, equal police departments. You know what I'm saying? Okay, let's see. Let's play this. If it plays, because my computer is acting up right now, y'all. So, like I said, have patience. That page. Like I said, my computer is slow, so have patience with me, y'all. I do have a point I'm trying to make here. Is this video ever played? You want to start going slow now, huh? Right when I'm trying to make my point. Yeah, well, might not can't play this video, but let's see. I'll try it one more time. Wow. I guess not, y'all. Well, the gist of it is this lady here, she wrote a book. She wrote a book that showed the history, the slave patrols were actually the militias, and the militias evolved into what we call the Ku Klux Klan. But they were both Ku Klux Klan and militias. You know what I'm saying? At the same time, they were both Ku Klux Klan and militias at the same time. So what you're looking at the white supremacists today are law enforcement, are militias, are Ku Klux Klan. All of them are synonymous. All of them people are synonymous with each other. So let's go back. They ain't allowing me to watch the video. So let's go back. Let's see. I think this is purposely. This is purposely done, probably, because at the end of the day, it's information to connect these dots uh, and uh, expose the general public for being naive and oblivious to certain things. It's something that's counter to the program, countering the suggestive programming with these broadcasts that I'm doing. People are under a spell at this particular moment. People are victims of massive mind control. Massive mind control. Look, now all of a sudden this video don't want to play at all. Come on now. Come on, y'all. Just be honest about this. Let's be real about what's really going on here. Right? The video don't want to play at all now. Look. Oh, it's playing now. Okay, let's see.
In the South were textbook.
Let's go back.
People know less about that history. But the militias that were slave patrols in the South were textbook militias. They were not paid. They're voluntary militias. They're not the same as constables, what we call police now, to police the white population. They were purely for, to inspect any stray black person. And this tells you how the police action is assumed to be a fugitive unless they can prove otherwise. They're in the Cotton Kingdom, they're all over, even all over the North. Any escaped that with the Dred Scott decision, every citizen, every white citizen, had the obligation to turn that person in. So in a way, they made everyone part of the slave patrol. The whole culture revolved around controlling enslaved Africans. When the Civil War came, these militias continued as best they could, to keep slaves from running away. The war built up, and that became difficult. But they didn't ever disband as slave patrols.
Never.
What happened is 6 months after the end of the Civil War, really Reconstruction got going, the Ku Klux Klan formed. Assembled the slave patrols all over the vehicles. And about halfway through Reconstruction, he said, the Klan is so pervasive in all of the former Confederate states that it would take 10 times as many divisions of the U.S. Army that exist to control them. And everyone said, that's amazing. How did they organize so fast? How did they do that? I said, well, they were already organized.
They were already organized. The militia with hoods on.
With Reconstruction, when the Union Army left, the hoods often became the sheriff and the police and the convict jail keepers. And this is
proof. This lady wrote a book on the history of this social DNA, this social thread that showed that what we calling today are directly connected to militias, before then slave patrols, militias, Ku Klux Klan. Okay, so what we seeing today in the police force is nothing more than that social thread, that social dynamics. This is old news. Come on now. This is all old news. Don't act like y'all so ignorant and y'all been under a rock for the past 25 years. Right? The problem is we want to be integrated so bad. You know what I'm saying? We want to be accepted by them so bad that we're willing to accept all the bullshit. Right? We're willing to accept all this bullshit in opposed to getting with ourselves and solving our own problem, right? Which is a psychological disorder we have, right? We have a psychological disorder, right? This is a good video too. Let me see if it plays. Oh, that was a video. I'm pretty sure it is a video. Let's see. Okay. Oh, it is a video. Hold on, we go back though. This is a video over how the government that's being dominated by Europeans at this particular moment was in the past dominated by indigenous Moors, right? Or so-called free blacks. So let me see. We can go into this video a little bit. Give me time to smoke some more of this herb that I got that I'm smoking. Let's look at this video right quick and like I said, have patience. This computer is very slow. Have patience with it. I appreciate all those who tune in. Check this out.
If you went to the library in Wilmington, North Carolina, there was one thing you weren't allowed to research.
We were refused. We were rejected by the librarian.
Not asked about or part about the United
it. I want to know why. I was told that yes, they had something, but they kept it under lock and key.
The story of Wilmington in 1898 still isn't widely.
What happened here on what's now just this empty patch of grass would radically change racial politics in North Carolina.
This is the story of an American election, but also of something we don't usually find in American history: the violent overthrow of a democratically elected government.
Mind you, this is basically a continuation of all that was happening in Tulsa, Oklahoma, all the riots and hangings, and the continuation of Jim Crow upon the recently so-called free slaves or whatever. This was a continuation of the terrorist acts that was sanctioned by the United States government. These were militias who would take off their hoods at night and become the police officers or the militia groups, the organized governmental sanctioned bodies, you know what I'm saying, of those states. So don't get it messed up. Make this connection. Don't be oblivious. We are vulnerable as a people. We need to protect ourselves against violence that's been implicated upon us for hundreds of years. It's asinine for us to accept this narrative that we are more violent and they have to come gun blazing in our community as if we haven't been the victim of violence for over hundreds of years. Not us attacking them, even though there were wars fought amongst us, the indigenous people and these colonizers. It wasn't near as violent as what they've done to our ancestors, the genocide and the wholesale killing of our ancestors, right? They got reports of they killed so many of our ancestors when they first got here. The planet cooled down because of they killed so many of us. Because of the carbon input or output of those people that they killed were gone, it cooled the whole planet down. Wow. So what we're about to watch right now is the overthrowing of governments or de jure governments, right, by foreigners who wanted to dominate the politics. They wanted to dominate the politics. So they terrorized those who participate in the body politics who are not of a foreign status. This is how they've been manipulating. They've been manipulative. They've been forceful, terrorizing, just to meet their ends, their political ends. This is not, and don't think this is just an isolated situation. Is what I want you to really get to.
In the late 1800s, Wilmington, North Carolina was the state's largest city. It had a majority Black population, and historians today describe it as a rarity in the post-Civil War American South.
Wilmington, prior to November 1898, was what the New South could be at the cusp of the 20th century.
There was an unusual degree of Black prosperity.
In Wilmington, there were successful Black entrepreneurs, doctors, teachers, but also Black elected officials. And for a time, that was true throughout the state. Take a look at the politicians on this poster of the 1889 North Carolina House of Representatives.
Mind you, I just wanted to, don't mind me. Why were Moors dominating that political infrastructure at that time? Why? Because we were outpopulating. We outpopulated the Europeans down south. You know what I'm saying? Some of the reason why the Civil War was fought is because of that dynamics. Don't get it messed up.
Here at the bottom are Black Republican representatives, some from Wilmington. North Carolina also sent 4 Black Republicans to the U.S. Congress between 1875 and 1899. The Democratic and Republican parties of 1898 in many ways occupied opposite parts of the political spectrum than they do today.
Most African Americans were voting for the Republican Party, and the Democratic Party was white voters almost exclusively. White supremacy was the central focus of the platform for the Democratic Party.
Republicans in North Carolina were successful in part because of a third party called the Populist Party, made up of mostly white farmers fed up with the tough economic times. North Carolina populists joined up with Republicans to form what they called the Fusion Party. And in the elections of 1894 and 1896, the Fusion Party defeated the Democrats in sweeping victories statewide. That meant North Carolina now had a government that shared power between black and white politicians, including a newly elected Republican governor. Together, they moved towards reforms that would favor Black Americans and working class whites.
This was something that the Democratic Party folks were simply not going to accept.
A multiracial government wasn't just a disappointment for Democrats. It was more like a humiliation. They needed a plan to take back control of the state in the next election. So party leaders like Furnifold Simmons, future U.S. Senator, Charles Aycock, future North Carolina governor, and this man, Alfred Moore Waddell, came up with one to beat the Fusion Party by luring white populist voters away from their alliance with black voters. Wilmington, with a large black population and a local fusion government in power, would be a focus of their campaign. The state Democratic Party handbook for 1898 laid out their goal: consolidate the white vote by stoking white anger and resentment. It said, "This is a white man's country, and white men must control and govern it." Their most effective tool was the media. One of North Carolina's biggest newspapers was a Democratic Party mouthpiece. It ran racist political cartoons throughout 1898.
Not everybody was literate in 1898, but to see a political cartoon of the type that ran, you may not be able to read it, but you know exactly what it means.
Many of the cartoons were centered on the threat of Negro rule, even though the fusion government was mostly white. They also played up another fear.
Black men threatening white women became a thing. White men need to do all that they can to protect white womanhood.
This was all part of North Carolina Democratic strategy, but it echoed the national racist rhetoric of the time. In one speech that Democrats printed in a Wilmington paper, a prominent Georgia writer named Rebecca Felton said,
"If it takes lynching a black man a day to protect white womanhood, I say lynch."
Her speech prompted a Wilmington black man named Alex Manley, owner of the black-run Daily Record newspaper, to respond with a column. He made a simple observation that, at the time, was shocking.
That white women who had...
Man, I'm tired of people acting like they so shocked about the truth. Everybody knew. It was just, they was pushing propaganda back then. They were pushing certain narratives for political means. Everybody knew anytime a white woman got intimate with a so-called black person, right? When the so-called white woman got intimate with a so-called black man, it was by choice. The white woman, they love us. Don't get it fucked up. See, the point was, anytime it would happen, right, it will be considered a rape in their community. Why? Because they needed a reason to take out their frustration because of their inferiority complex, right? Because they know as soon as they go black, they ain't coming back.
With black men did so voluntarily and enthusiastically.
Every Negro lynch is called a big burly black brute, when in fact many were sufficiently attractive for white girls to fall in love with them.
Manley pretty much said, in a nutshell, sometimes white women choose to be with black men.
Manley's editorial.
It ain't no sometimes. You see how these other ones, don't ever fall for these white liberal cats, these so-called white liberals. They are worse than the Confederate down south bigot. They are worse than them because they're going to play the game too. They know better than a lot of stuff that they're saying, like what she just did, talking about, oh, some of the time it was voluntary. No, all of the time. There is no overwhelming evidence that no so-called black man raped no white woman. That was always an excuse to lynch. Period. There was never an instance where that ever happened in this country. It was always an excuse to lynch. It was always an excuse to lynch.
Another tool for Democrats. Newspapers reprinted it, called it a horrid slander, and ran comments about it on a daily basis. It was just a few months before the election, and white voters were angry.
By the time the election rolls around on November 8th, black voters, Republican voters, had been thoroughly intimidated.
By all accounts, the elections of 1898 were a sham. The Democratic Party had a paramilitary group called the Red Shirts. They attacked and blocked black residents from voting. At a rally just before the
terrorism.
election, Alfred Waddell provoked the crowds. He said,
terrorism.
Legal office holding ought at once and forever be brought to an end, even if we have to choke the current of the Cape Fear River with carcasses. The votes were counted, and the Democrats won.
Democratic candidates won every seat they had a candidate up for election.
But some local fusion...
Because of terrorism. They terrorized the community, made them afraid to even vote. They still do that to this day.
Politicians remained in power because their seats hadn't been up for re-election, like the white Republican mayor and the board of aldermen. And of course, the election did nothing to undo the economic power black folks held in the city. The Democrats had won the election, but their goal of total white supremacist control remained out of reach.
And so they engineered what was essentially a coup d'etat.
The day after the election, at a gathering for white men in Wilmington, the Democrats unveiled a document called the White Declaration of Independence. It contained an ultimatum. Cynthia Brown, whose descendants were in Wilmington back in 1898, is a historian at her church where there's a preserved copy of the Declaration from the next day's newspaper.
We will no longer be ruled and will never again be ruled by men of African origin.
They would strip black men of voting rights. They would give white men a large part of the employment heretofore given to black men. And as for Alex Manly, we demand that he leave this city forever within 24 hours. The next morning, hundreds of white men marched to the offices of the Daily Record. Manly was gone. He had fled to save his own life. They set the Daily Record building on fire. This is where it once stood.
Once the white leadership destroyed Alex Manly's printing press, they destroyed one way in which the African American community in Wilmington could organize itself and keep itself informed.
No, that's enough of that, man.
The mayor and
mean,
the board
this
of
is
aldermen were forced out.
all documented evidence on
in City Hall at the time. They didn't do it.
What's been going on.
And as they resigned, a new
It's us who continue to participate in obvious, you know what I'm saying, injustice and inequalities, which at the end of the day, why are we looking at them as the standard of equality and what giving us justice? We should look towards them and their society to give us justice in some type of way. Peace. No, I'm just broadcasting right now.
Oh, okay.
Right. I'm doing it. I'm doing a YouTube live and shit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get dressed and you ain't going nowhere, are you? Still want me to come?
Oh yeah, later on though.
Okay, what time?
Shit, I ain't gonna be back probably until like 5 or 6.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Okay, let's go back into this. All right. I appreciate those who are patient with me. Okay, now, in order for us to address the dynamics of the politics that was going on at that time, we have to go into the fact that a lot of those people had not been far removed from their actual heritage and knew. I mean, a lot of those so-called black people back then knew that who they were. They knew um, that their ancestors didn't come from Africa. They were in Africa. Okay, and what I mean by that is this is Northeast Africa. I can prove that. I mean Northwest Africa. Um, we call it America today, right? I can prove this science by science, not just religious rhetoric, right? Okay, the status of Negroes, his right and disabilities. Section 1, the Act of 1740, Section 1, declared all Negroes and Indians, free Indians and admit, admittee, I think that's it because I can't see what they said over that, with this government, Negroes, mulattoes, Miss Zenzos, Miss Zizzos, Mrs. who are not free, exempt to be slaved, are not free, exempt to be slaved. The offsprings to follow the condition of the mother, and that such slaves are chattel personal, right? These are black codes. These are what they use to um, reduce our status to a servitude condition. Under the provisions of this of the provision, it has been uniformly held that color is prime facial evidence that the party bearing the color of the Negro, mulatto, or Miss Zinzo, Miss Zinzo, Zinzo, Miss Zinzo is a slave. But the same prime facial result does not form, not follow from the Indian color, right? Does not follow from the Indian color, right? Section 3. Indians and the descendants of the Indians are regarded as free Indians and at amity with this government until the contrary be shown. In the second proviso of Section 1 of the Act of 1740, it is declared that every Negro, Indian, mulatto, and mestizo is a slave unless the contrary can be made to appear. Yet in the same it is immediately thereafter provided that Indian is amity with the government, exempt, in which the burden of proof shall lie on the defendant, that is on the person claiming the Indian plaintiff to buy to bay slave. This latter clause of the proviso is not regarded as furnishing the rule. The the race of slave Indians are of slaves not in amity to the government, the state, and extent, and hence to previous parts of the pro proviso have no application. So basically, they're telling you it's based on status, on whether you're presenting yourself or you're operating under these brand titles. They're giving you like that's why they can't. Also, let's go into this. The term Negro is confined to slave Africans, right? Which we are not. The ancient barbers, right? Which we are not, right? All right, this is the barber was the name who was given to the people who the barbers, right? Who were Moors, right? But that was not the designation politically that they was operating at the time, and they and their descendants, and does not embrace it does not embrace the free inhabitants of Africa, such as the and free inhabitants. This is where they're going in deep. Free inhabitants such as the Egyptians, Moors, or the Negro Asiatics, such as Lascars, right? So Moors, Egyptians, Negro Asiatics, which are Moors too. They just tried to put that in there. It's a clever psych right there. Negro Asiatics. Come on now, that's a clever psych. But these people are these status of Negro, his rights and disability doesn't apply to these people right here. Doesn't apply to the Egyptians, the Moors, or the Negro Asiatic, which are Moors too, right? So it was the political dynamics of this country is very deeply based in our heritage, our birthrights, on the fact that we are the indigenous people of the land. And these people know, and they've used this as leverage to build themselves. And what I mean by that is they've Christianized most of the indigenous people here. And what does that mean? Christianizing, it means you're transferring your estate over to whatever Christian nation that it conquered your people. You know what I'm saying? This is what the Inquisition is. This is what the dumb diverses, all the papal bulls and edices that the Pope declared and put out, all the popes, they were claiming your stuff because they were on a military campaign to perpetuate the Christian faith. Now, when you understand what the Christian faith actually really is, which is a political military body or organized body, it is not a per se a religion or a religious group, even though they are very ecclesiastic with their politics. Their politics is very ecclesiastic. You know what I'm saying? They're doing things based on higher, which that's when you get to the higher people in the compartmentalized structure, power structure, that is what we calling globalization, what we're calling what are the new words for them? Like because it's not the New World Order anymore. It's I'll say the deep state. That's a new trending word out here that's evolving the conversation on people really understanding and connecting the dots from years ago, who were sincere, who just didn't take all this information as like some conspiracy theory entertainment, right? Who really was doing the research. You feel me? And evolve the conversation up to the point where now we're looking at things in a whole nother different light, in a broader perspective, based on being sincere with the research from over 20 years ago. That's the type of person that I have become, and I have been. I'm an investigator, and I've been an investigator. I've been connecting these dots for over 20 years now. So it will eventually come to a point where, like I'm saying, I know people are playing stupid and acting stupid and choosing to be oblivious. This information is old. This information has been available for a long time now. Like, this information has been available. It's just people have been choosing to be ignorant. They're choosing to be ignorant, right? Which is a sin. Right? Okay, it was something else I wanted to go in on here. But I think that'll do it for today. I think I had made my point. And I appreciate those who tune into this. I know I don't got a lot of listeners. People ain't really checking me out. I do it just because I kind of want to organize my thoughts and some things that I've said, and review my presentation skills, my ability to present this information to the people. So yeah, I appreciate those who just participate in this experiment I'm doing. Okay. I'm still broadcasting to this 42 minutes. I'm going to end it right there, though. Peace, y'all.